time on Beyond Stardom, 5 hard-working celebrities who also strut their stuff behind the scenes. This ex-wild child came in as the world's most beautiful person in a poll by People magazine in 2007.
I know.
And Drew Barrymore wasted no time in capitalizing on her new title. Within 3 months, she'd signed a major cosmetics deal.
It feels good to be the new face of CoverGirl. I love it. I mean, when I was, growing up, I had all the CoverGirl campaigns on my wall, Carol Alt and Cheryl Tiegs and Christy Brinkley. And, I loved that era of photography and the style of it.
Although she wasn't about to sell her soul.
If they want me to bring something to it, then again, I will be myself and I'll try and bring an energy and a style that I think is classic yet modern. And to me, that's about timelessness.
And few stars understand the meaning of timelessness like Drew Barrymore, who in 2004 became the latest in a long line of Barrymores to be immortalized on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
This is such an honor. My grandfather's profile and feet and hands are right there. And I'm so appreciative that you guys came out today. It makes it so much more special. I'm so thankful to the city. I'm so thankful to all my friends and family and my bosses at Sony. You were first.
Founded by her great-grandfather Morris, the Barrymore acting dynasty lived on through her great-aunt Ethel and great-uncle Lionel in films of the 30s and 40s. But the greatest notoriety was earned by her party-loving grandfather, John, who was billed as the greatest actor of his generation and starred in classics like Grand Hotel and Svengali.
Feel back for CoverGirl.
For a while there, it looked as though Drew had inherited his self-destructive streak. After rising to international stardom at the age of 6 as the adorable Gertie in E.T., she rebelled. 4 years later, she was smoking marijuana and drinking alcohol. 3 years later, she was in rehab. The advantage of doing so much so young was that she'd already grown out of nightclubs and all-night partying by the time she reached legal drinking age. Since making her comeback in the 1996 shocker Scream, she's been seriously committed to fulfilling the Barrymore destiny.
I love making films. I love it. It runs through my soul and my blood, and it gives me my greatest happiness. So I totally get obsessiveness.
In the late 90s, that obsession with making films inspired her to take over the reins herself, to produce the big screen remake of 70s detective show Charlie's Angels. Persuading Cameron Diaz and Lucy Liu to join her in the ride, the film was a box office smash. For the Angels sequel, she managed to cajole Demi Moore out of retirement to play Angel Gone Bad Madison Lee. More recently, Drew has been using her powers of persuasion for a much more worthy cause, as ambassador against hunger for the United Nations World Food Programme.
I'm so proud to be working with the World Food Program. I read an article in the New York Times about school feeding programs a few years ago, and I just started working in documentary, which is a film forum, which is something I understand and I'm comfortable with, but it's a way to educate myself. So I did call the UN and asked if I could have the opportunity to go with my camera crew and start learning, and what it did was it changed my life. And it enlightened me, and I started learning from the very children that we were filming about what is important in life and what the priorities should be. And the priorities from these children are to have 1 meal a day and to be educated. And most of these children take half their food home to their families to share it with them.
This humbling experience, along with her January 2007 decision to end her 5-year relationship with Strokes drummer Fabrizio Moretti, helped usher in a new era for the star, who hopes to take on directing next.
I think I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life, and sometimes you have to make very difficult decisions that are painful and feel dramatic, and then if you can see down the line, once you can reflect, if you're happy in that moment, it was worth making those decisions. And I've been, really tough on myself and reevaluating and making myself a better person and growing up and evolving. And so I feel like that's what it's attributing to. I'm challenging myself in new ways. I'm getting more aware of the world, and it's in small steps, but it's fulfilling me as a human being.
Coming up, Robert Downey Jr. In 2005, this actor and singer was invited to open for 80s supergroup Duran Duran, but had to turn down the offer due to film commitments. It wasn't the first time that Robert Downey Jr. has been forced to turn down a gig. In 2003, Woody Allen was desperate to cast him in his film Melinda and Melinda, but Robert's multiple run-ins with the law made him impossible to insure, and Woody had to let him go. The New York native grew up in California with his acting father. In 1987, he played a drug-addicted freshman in an adaptation of Bret Easton Ellis's Less Than Zero. 9 years later, no acting was required when he was arrested for drink driving and being in possession of Mexican black tar heroin, crack, cocaine, and an unloaded Magnum revolver. For the next few years, he was in and out of jail on various drug charges. He went on to spend a year in rehab after losing his job as Callista Flockhart's love interest on Ally McBeal, but not before he'd appeared as a writer and singer on Vonda Shepard's album Ally McBeal for Once in My Life. Since then, he's been gradually easing himself back into Hollywood's good books with films like The Singing Detective, which tells the story of a crime novelist who, while languishing in a hospital bed, conjures up a fantasy about a cynical private investigator who doubles as a singer in a dance band. The film, which called on Robert to launch into song and dance numbers mid-scene, had critics predicting an Oscar nomination.
How do I feel about it? It's better than people saying, we're certain you won't be nominated for this. Wait, hold on. See, and if I do, were I to, it's only because of these kind of promotional items they send out, like the Singing Detective pink Cadillac.
In Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, writer-director Shane Black was relieved to find Robert and former fellow bad boy Val Kilmer on their best behavior.
There's this reputation that both of them have. That's the past. There was nothing on my set to indicate that they were anything other than consummate professionals.
As if to add depth to his reformed image, Robert was chaperoned to the premiere by his new wife, Kiss Kiss producer Susan Levin. At the premiere of his 2006 film, Burr, An Imaginary Portrait of Diane Arbus, he was happy to fly solo. Even without the help of his absentee co-star Nicole Kidman, he kept the paparazzi entertained.
Well, Nicole is kind of in a class by herself. She's so committed, and she's such an amazing technical and emotional actress, you know? Now, my character was just, I kind of just try to be mysterious and talking, and there's a lot of stuff to do, you know what I mean? Sometimes I don't know what to do with my face. This time, obviously, it wasn't that big a stretch, because I know what I did. This is the most avant-garde interview in history. Yeah, is that a fisheye lens? Why don't you compose yourself and I'll catch up with you later.
The same year, he felt right at home in A Scanner Darkly, Richard Linklater's bleak look at drug abuse.
I had these little fuzzy slippers. I had slippers.
They were fantastic.
Yeah.
They were pink.
Because I've seen a couple tweakers in my life, and oftentimes, as long as you're not going to be leaving the house for 2 weeks, you might as well put on some slippers. So that really helped me dig into my character. Aside from the 25 years of drug research I've been doing previous.
Coincidentally, A Scanner Darkly co-starred Winona Ryder, who Woody Allen had also been unable to insure for Melinda and Melinda on account of her 2002 shoplifting conviction. Having kept out of trouble for the past 5 years, Robert was ready to take on a co-production credit on Dito Montiel's debut feature, A Guide to Recognizing Your Saints.
Producing is a tremendous undertaking because you're there as the script's being developed, you're there for casting, you're there for as the crew comes together. Everyone comes. I was used to, there's a script, shooting starts, shooting's done, I'm done, see you at press, and that is not the reality of filmmaking. So for me, it was a real eye-opener to what I'd been taking for granted for the last 20 years or so.
shock rocker's favourite film is said to be 1971's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. But then Marilyn Manson, who was dubbed Reverend Manson by Church of Satan founder Anton LaVey, is all about extreme opposites. Born Brian Hugh Warner in 1969, he studied music journalism before deciding to hit the stage himself. His stage name, combining Marilyn Monroe with murderer Charles Manson, was chosen to symbolize the ultimate disturbing dualism of American culture. His zombie makeup, spooky contact lenses, outlandish costumes, and theatrical stage performances helped him and his band of the same name develop a cult following, which grew into a worldwide fan base. Rubbing politicians and religious leaders up the wrong way with his lyrical references to sex, drugs, and violence has helped Marilyn Manson to 3 platinum albums, 2 of which went to #1 in America. Fanning the flames of controversy and handing the band maximum publicity ahead of their Croatian gig in 2005, protesters lobbied until the last minute in a desperate bid to cancel the concert. The Gothic giant shrugged off the incident, but on arriving in London with his then-fiancée Dita Von Teese, he laughed at the hypocrisy of the protests.
Some priests were trying to pay me not to play, but the hotel I was staying in, there were 12-year-old kids gambling and drinking beer, so I don't really see what my threat was, because I don't like to gamble. I don't drink beer either. It's not good for my slender figure.
He was given a warmer welcome at the annual Kerrang Awards, where he was honored with the prestigious Icon Award.
Completely well-deserved, yeah.
Definitely.
Absolutely, I mean, the thing about Manson that I've always liked is that, he's challenged the mores of America continuously through his music, and it's really important. There's a long, long history of satire and of challenging basically the society that we live in that goes back like 500 years within art, and Manson is, spearheading all of that now.
Having shaken things up with his music, the man in the makeup mask was preparing to take on the art world. He'd made a start to his painting career in 1999, when he claimed to have sold his 5-minute concept pieces to drug dealers. In 2006, he was thinking much bigger, opening up an art gallery and selling his own watercolors.
Because I use a children's watercolor kit for a lot of my paintings, that's why they're very bright. So people probably imagine if I painted something, it would be like in dog feces or blood or something. But there is blood in some of them, but the only other medium that I've really incorporated recently is, besides like other types of paint, I put absinthe a lot of times in my paintings.
Although he'd never intended to part from his paintings, he explained how he'd felt driven to share his art.
I never intended for people to even see my paintings, let alone to separate with them. So it's been quite a difficulty for me. But after it started to happen at first, then I realized that now I have to paint more paintings. I'm kind of obliged to be a painter.
Having come to that conclusion, he was happy to whack price tags ranging from $8,000 to $35,000 on his infantile art, which he sells under the banner of the Celebritarian Corporation that boasts the slogan, "We sell our shadow to those who stand in it." The next medium on his hit list was film. Phantasmagoria, The Visions of Lewis Carroll, produced, directed by and starring Marilyn Manson, has been in the pipeline since February 2006. Some may have questioned his decision to cast himself as the title character in the $42 million film with barely any acting experience, but Marilyn was adamant.
Well, it wasn't a vanity project. If anything, it's out of humility because the character is very vulnerable, and I think it just came out of me finding myself relating a lot to the sorrow that he was living in. It is a horror film, but it's hard to really acknowledge that when you feel almost ashamed to associate yourself with a genre that's becomes, rather cliche, but it's then a challenge to redefine the genre. So I'm going to make something that's very, very unsettling, but also very, I think it's kind of romantic in a way, because he just has this obsession with the idea of a girl. And so she's more than just Alice, you know, she ends up playing like one person's obsession with everything you could want in someone, because he had no one, and he died alone, and so it's a very lonely story.
The same can't be said for Marilyn, whose split from Dieter had barely hit the gossip pages when he was snapped canoodling with 19-year-old actress Evan Rachel Wood. The controversy deepened when the pair got hot and heavy in the video to Marilyn's 2007 single, Heart-Shaped Glasses. She may also be seen in the upcoming film. Coming up, Tim Robbins. This 6'5" actor has had 7 of his own plays produced in Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, and at the Edinburgh Festival. And in 2004, Tim Robbins set off on tour in a play that combined his art with his anti-war activism. Embedded centers on the journalists who were embedded with the military in Iraq and highlights the role played by the media in orchestrating the Pentagon's pro-war spin.
And that kind of logic was on display in the months leading up to the war. It was clear there was an agenda being served by the American neoconservatives, and it was clear also, sadly, there was a compliance in the American media.
Like his outspoken partner of over 15 years, Tim has been consistently passionate in his opposition to the war in Iraq.
People have to see the relation between their support of war and they have to view it through a prism of themselves, and how much of that support of that war has to do with the fact that they know they'll never have to go over and fight it.
He and Susan Sarandon are known for taking any public opportunity to put forth their political views, and at the 2007 Oscar ceremony, they drew criticism for their seemingly innocuous gesture supporting peace. They also threw their celebrity weight behind Bob Geldof's Live 8 anti-poverty campaign. And Tim has become involved in the fight to help people in poverty-stricken areas to help themselves. The United Nations Microfinance Program was set up to encourage countries to provide financial support to impoverished citizens through insurance, pensions, and loans. Tim hosted a ceremony to celebrate the achievements of so-called poor entrepreneurs from all over the world, who have used microfinance to build a better future for themselves and their communities.
It's one thing to have a telethon, throw money at a problem after it's happened. Oh, there's a famine there or there's a tribal conflict there. But what about if someone had invested years ago in that country in small businesses, in entrepreneurs that felt that they had an idea that they could start a business? That's what microfinance is about.
But for all his involvement in political and social debate, Tim isn't about to follow the path of actor-turned-politician.
My worth is as hopefully as a storyteller and someone that can bring ideas onto the screen or onto the stage. And my worth is not in making deals to try to make that happen. I don't know how to do that. I couldn't do that. You just have to know what you're capable of, and I just wouldn't be able to wear a suit that many times in my life. And a tie, I just can't do it.
Aside from his very public roles as an actor and activist, Tim has also spent a lot of time behind the scenes. As well as writing plays, he's the founder and artistic director of a theatre group called the Actors Gang in LA. He's also had great success as a director and producer. His first directorial outing, in which he also starred, was 1992's Bob Roberts. His 1995 film Dead Man Walking earned him an Oscar nomination for Best Director. He then upped the ante to direct the Depression-era musical Cradle Will Rock. Over the last few years, however, he's been kept busy in front of the camera. In 2003, he turned in a multi-award-winning performance as a screwed-up survivor of child abuse in Clint Eastwood's film Mystic River. Ever the team player, Tim was humble about the fuss.
All about the community effort. It's not about the individual. And this is nice, you know. I'm happy to be honored, but it's really a group effort, you know, and I got lucky on this one.
As well as winning a Best Supporting Actor Oscar and a Golden Globe, he picked up a Screen Actors Guild honor voted for by his peers.
Oh, that's so cool. Susan's got one of these. I'm gonna get them alone in a dark room and see what happens.
He and Susan live in New York with their children Jack Henry and Miles Guthrie. Susan also has a daughter Eva from an earlier relationship. This young Democrat supporter was quoted as saying that America was responsible in some way for the 2001 terrorist attacks. In response to the criticism provoked by her remarks at the 2005 Tribeca Film Festival, Maggie Gyllenhaal said that 9/11 was an occasion to be brave enough to ask some serious questions about America's role in the world, and that it was useful as individuals or nations to ask how we may have knowingly or unknowingly contributed to this conflict. She later expressed regret for her comments and offered to pull out of portraying the wife of Port Authority officer Willy Wonka in Oliver Stone's 2006 film World Trade Center. However, Alison Yamino, who'd endured a terrifying wait for news of her husband's welfare in the wake of the attacks, gave her the thumbs up.
I guess I feel like what they did by opening up their lives to all of us, such a brave, honorable thing to do. I really wanted to honor her back. But I guess I didn't think the best way to do that was to imitate her or to try to recreate exactly her memory of that day. Instead, I felt like the way to do that, the way I could really honor her was by just trying to be as brave as I could be as an actress in the scenes that I was in. And so I did get to know her, and I was really inspired by her, but I never went about it trying to imitate her. I never grilled her for everything that happened that day or how she felt or what color nail polish she was wearing,
Portraying the pregnant Alison Yamino meant wearing a fake belly for the first part of the shoot. But coincidentally, Maggie ended up falling pregnant during filming, giving her more insight into her character's emotional truth.
I tried to imagine what it would be like. It's a very difficult thing to imagine before you've been through it. I think maybe I do feel more empathy now. I think you're both more emotional and also in some ways clearer and stronger pregnant. At least that's been my experience. So, you get some of both. Everything's more intense.
And she was blown away by the way art so often imitates life.
There's another movie coming out too that's all about me being a mom. I guess it's like whatever. Sometimes when things are on my mind, they lead me toward projects, and I think that must have been what happened with these couple of movies.
Despite her pregnancy, 2006 has so far proved to be the busiest year of Maggie's career, with no fewer than 6 films hitting the big screen, including Stranger Than Fiction, Monster House, and Paris Je T'aime. It also saw the release of Sherry Baby, in which she plays a female prisoner desperate to be reunited with her young daughter. The film got a huge leg up through its screening at the Sundance Film Festival.
When they took our movie, I felt so kind of encouraged. I felt like they were saying, keep making movies like this. We will support you. We will help you. We will help get them seen. And, I am a huge supporter of that.
She's now taken over from Katie Holmes as District Attorney Rachel Dawes in the Batman Begins sequel, The Dark Knight. The father of Maggie's new daughter Ramona is actor Peter Sarsgaard, who's also a good friend of her younger brother Jake. The pair have been together since 2001, when Maggie supported Jake in the cult film that made him a star, Donnie Darko. She stepped out of his shadow the next year with the black comedy Secretary, that followed the romance of a sadomasochistic boss and his latest recruit. Despite her initial fears that the film might send an anti-feminist message, she ended up bearing all for the camera and earning her first Golden Globe nomination.